Hello and welcome to another Houseki no Kuni video. Here I have the Houseki no Kuni concept art book for the anime, and it is basically a bunch of backgrounds and uh like concept art. So that's what concept art is, like for them to get the mood of the series. It's very interesting because for those of you who've read the manga has very plain backgrounds, and so this was really done for the creators to get a feel of what artistic liberties they were going to take with the series. And it's very, very interesting. And at the back of the book, there's an interview with, I believe, one of the lead background designers or something like that. And I have tried my best to give it some sort of translation with the aid of Google Translate, and I'll read a translation of it that I have for this part, and it's very interesting because it talks about like some tips that the author of this interview. Where's his name? His name is somewhere. Uh, Nishikawa. Uh, Yoichi Nishikawa. He gives some tips about sometimes when he was working at Ghibli. So there's some really interesting tips and stuff that he discusses there. But yeah, here's the front cover. The front cover is a scene of Rutile right there, and then Foss right here, like sitting on the bench. You can see that this was, oh, if it focuses, uh, copyright 2017. It says volume 1, but I don't think there's a volume 2. Right here it just says TV, anime, Hoseki no Kuni, concept art, and then it has it in English right here, in orange, and then Works Volume 1. Uh, this is a really big book. My hands are tiny, but like it's a pretty big book, so I'm gonna try to get it all in frame, but it doesn't really fit entirely in the frame. Uh, but here, that's the cover of it. And then here's the inside of the cover, which is basically the sketch for what's on it, which is very nice. And this card came with it. And this card is a diamond. You can see the orange logo on the bottom. When I got this, I was wondering if it was just something that was with the seller, but it looks like it came with the book. And on the back it says, "Thank you for purchasing," uh, and then Orange Studio, and then I believe one of the people at Orange's names. Yeah. And so that came with the book. Here's this cover sketch, and then right over here. So then we have. I love these transparent pages. Don't know what the purpose is of it, but it's cool. There's also transparent pages in the uh, other illustration book for Ichikawa, and there's also one in the Party at the End art book. So I don't know, it's cool. It kind of adds. I don't know. It doesn't add that much to the book, but it's just cool how there's like a transparent page and then the actual page. I'm nerding out about random things. Okay, so here's Hoseki no Kuni in Japanese. Then it has it in English, and then orange logo, of course. Uh, and here, I have a translation for this too. Again, not the best, most accurate translation, but a translation. So, in the distant future, a world where once existing creatures have become gems. Sorry, almost said humans. So, in a distant world where once existing creatures have become gems with immortal bodies, uh, the film depicts a fierce battle with the mysterious Lunarians who who are from the moon. Uh, a story of a strong, fragile, and beautiful gem. Uh, okay, or gems. There's in plurals in Japanese. Okay, school. Yeah, so this is gonna be stuff from the school, I guess. Here's Fuss in concept art. Blades of grass. I really hope that I get the full thing, but it will be cut off a bit. Yeah, I believe most of these can be found somewhere like on the internet, but this book compiles like all their concept art. Um, yeah, so that's that. And it's Foss and Morg the first time we see Foss. And then this is the island that they've colored. And yeah, here's the school. So we have this outer shot of the school, and I'm not sure if this building is in the manga. we never see it. I remember in a video I watched, someone pointed it out, and I'd never thought of it before. I don't think that this is actually in the manga, but it might have been something that they added. I'm not sure. Someone with greater knowledge of looking at the school and the manga can let me know. If not, it's probably just a storage building. I don't know. Here is a like wider, like angled shot of the school, and I just love how like the shape language of all these shots, just that they're very aesthetic, which is what Ichikawa's artwork is very like. Um, Here is like so like Ichikawa has some great composition work, but the manga is very simplified as manga is. So these shots are just so beautiful with how detailed they are, like with the cracks in the walls, in the plants, in the water, and the water itself is just so beautiful. Like faucet themselves are very like simple, but the background is really uh the backgrounds here are really the star of the concept art. I think mainly because they were mainly figuring out, okay, how are we going to draw backgrounds for a show that has very, or for a manga series that has very limited backgrounds? Uh, yeah, and here you see that they are playing with lighting too, like the different moods, because of course it's black and white in the manga, so there is some lighting differences, but they really have to think about lighting and the mood and how that affects the shot. So here we have like a very like I guess sun rising in the background mood. There's sun setting mood and then snow. It's just very cool how it's basically the same composition, but the colors and the uh like background changes everything about the shot, and that's very cool to see. Here's the cover. Yeah, this is the cover. You see the like corridor of the place where Rutile works, and then there's Foss sitting over there. But another thing I love is how detailed the backgrounds are, but how simple the characters are, and it still works. Obviously, they were giving more focus into the backgrounds rather than the characters, because of course they were going to do the characters in 3D. Here's the like this was such a pretty shot in the manga just of this not manga anime pretty shot in the anime, just of this outer like the outer edges of the school and the uh pond. We're probably looking in from the bell tower. Actually, I didn't think about this. That's probably what these two lines are, and it really frames the shot. uh let's see if I can turn pages. So here's more of just different lighting. So here we have Foss in the middle, and then the lighting's red, and then it goes to blue, and I believe that's Dia. I could be wrong. They could also be Foss. And then there's Bort, obviously, because Bort is so like thing. And this is actually a different shot, like different composition from before, even though it's the same place. Oh wait, no, it's the same. So I guess these might be solely the bell tower. But it's just interesting how like the lighting of the jellyfish changes that. And here it's more like Foss colored, and then this is more Dia colored with the rainbow. So I assume that's Dia in the middle. Um, yeah. Here's a shot of just the hallway. Again, this is like Foss colored because it's like the teal, and it's dark. And then here we have amethyst, and of course this shot was made, and it's a light purple, and there's no compared to the other one, there's a reflection in the bottom. And of course, this was made for that scene where you first meet the amethysts, and they had this shot because they're going to. What they did in the anime is they peered down to the middle and peer back up, which is a very cool shot. Um, Here's the underwater. We didn't get to see like this. They're barely underwater. Like other gems besides Voss are barely underwater in the story, but it's so pretty, like how they did this. Like the shot in the anime where they're underwater is super small, but they wanted to make sure they got it right. And so this concept art is just beautiful with like the light coming in from the top and everything. And then there's Bort down here, like investigating the snail and all the jellyfish. You know, and so that's just very cool. My camera keeps going in and out of focus, but yeah, it's fine. So next we have this is more inside corridor. This looks like specifically the strategy room. So I don't know who that is. They're kind of too big. I assume it's Foss. Yeah, Foss. Probably Foss. Probably Foss. This is definitely Foss because of the hair. Um, I think this is all different shots of the strategy room. You have papers on the chairs there and all that. One thing I like, everything is so it feels so empty and so shaped, like, but it still feels like a physical place, which is really interesting. Because in the manga, the simplistic backgrounds like make sense because everything else is so simplistic, but when they actually have to add detail, they did a great job of making it feel like an actual place instead of just like a background, you know. Um, and here is Daya. Like you can see that they were still experimenting with how they wanted her hair or their hair to be. We have the plant and then the smoke, and this is just a very dramatic shot. I believe in the interview they said that this was one of the first shots that they did for concept art, and it's very striking. I wonder why Daya isn't in the middle, or maybe they just did it for a pan over. I'm not sure, but like just with Daya right there, and then the smoke and everything. It's a very cool shot. I love this. I just love this composition in general. Just Foss in the middle of all the like basically diamond shapes as they look outside. It's just very pretty, and it's very pretty in the manga too. Like when this was adapted in the anime, it was pretty. Like now it's pretty. I just love this shot, and it's the first page of chapter 2 in the manga, and you can see like Foss like sitting there looking outside, and it's just very very pretty. Here's some of Foss when they got their legs taken off. Spoilers, obviously, if you haven't watched the anime. Um, and then there's Congo and Foss, like when he was about to yell at Foss. And then we have Congo. And this is like how they were able to make it, like I guess the perspective and making it like look like the room is round is all very good. And the colors here, like the fact that Boss and Congo stand out from the background because they're a lot more brighter. Like just it's very good artwork, which you would expect from that. Yeah. There's Morg. Who's that? Who are you? That's probably Goshen, if I had to guess. The Morgan Goshen probably. Um, and they're putting up the stuff for winter, and this is such a nice shot with a like vertical like eye path, very nice. And then we have the gems waking up from their slumber, and we have Foss just standing on the side of the door that's letting in all the light. Very nice. Here's the Doge enemy. There's Daya at the bottom with a sword, and yep, it's kind of hard to get the detail like that's in the middle of the scene, but yeah, I loved this battle sequence. It was so cool, and they took liberties with it that made it like with a lot of the battle scenes that made them even better, just with the moving camera and all that. I love how the light, like the bright light that comes in when you're inside, like the building, and just how it comes in, and then you see all the fog from the Lunarian, I guess. The next page. This is the next page. Uh, or is there? No, there is another page here. Okay, here's lovely, happy Cinnabar. Um, again, I love the like I don't know what this is called, but the window texture on the background. That's just again Ichikawa's thing. But the windows are I love this diamond pattern in the windows. Um, and then we see Cinnabar. We see how they like paint, like the way they did the Mercury just looks really cool, and the Mercury kind of brings light and attention to Cinnabar, like in the room, and just all the wilted flowers in the background matching Cinnabar's hair is just this is just a really good like close shot. Most of this video is just gonna be like, wow, this art is cool, because wow, this art is cool. So yeah, and then here is it without Cinnabar, like when like of course the scene where when Bennett told just like it shows Foss Cinnabar's room that Cinnabar doesn't live in anymore, and you can see like that, and this is such a cool shot of it being like warded off and all that, and I believe that it was Cinnabar's Mercury that was in the door. This looks more like a shade, like a what is it called, like a window shade, but yeah, like very cool. You can see how like them drawing the characters are pretty simplistic here. But I believe the main emphasis was like the mood of the shot, the backgrounds, and everything like that. And there's so much detail that I think can't be picked up on the camera. That's just so pretty about these artworks. But I this is also just a really cool one. The part where like Foss is going a little uh trauma brain, and you can just see the chair and how they connected it down here to Antark. And this is just such a nice vertical shot of just Foss and Antark, and there are different colors of like green, like teal and like white, just really pretty, and how it's kind of the opposite shot. Here's Daya. Here's Foss when Foss goes to talk to Daya, and of course we know Daya is very bright, so there's so much more lighting here than there is with Foss, and Daya's like shine is kind of going over to Foss, but in contrast, like Daya's face is more shaded. It's very like the composition is just so good, even though the characters are drawn really simplistically. Like there's not even expressions on their faces, but the mood is what you can get out of this concept art, and that's what they use to when they were finalizing, every scene is they use this as the starting point of like, what do we want this to feel like? It's very good. This was also such a lovely, grand shot in the anime, as well as the manga. Like, it was really coolly composed in the manga, and then they just elevated in the anime with the colors and everything. The pink background is so striking uh, with all the like cool tone colors. It's very good. That's all I have to say. Is like, wow, this art's great. It's gonna be me most of the video. This is Antark's room. I think this is supposed to be more in winter because there's more snow, and then this is probably when winter is either starting or when it's ending because there's less snow, and it's a very ominous shot. They did a great job of like animating Antark like waking up for the winter. It's very good. If you're watching this and you haven't watched the anime, you should. That's all I'm saying. I guess this is like either this is probably the end of winter, and then yeah. So it's very cool how they drew this multiple times just so that they can get the feel at different time periods and what they wanted for the shot of the actual show. Now we're on to the island. Here's Daya. Daya's more in the center here, but yeah, so here's with the grass and the sky. In the manga, there's like a curve to like the edges, which they don't really do here, but it's still good. That's one thing that when I read the manga, I was like, oh wow, like the composition of the edges kind of being curved makes the shot a lot cooler. But with the addition of color and the Lunarian striking, like it makes sense. And I think they talk about in the interview that they really wanted to give the island a sense of realness and a sense of like body. So even though in the manga, since it's a lot more simplified, Ichikawa can take those creative liberties to like shift the background to emphasize the main characters in the shot. But the anime, they really had to do it where they're like, how can we make this look realistic? Like realistic in the sense of the characters are actually moving in this environment and detailed and pretty, which they accomplish greatly. I don't know where this is on the island, but it's strikingly beautiful. Just the very blue water and the red land, and then Congo walking towards the lunar ship is just very good. And then, of course, there's also different developments of the lunar ship here, as this is when it's just appearing, and this is when it's appeared. They also had like in the manga, it's just black and white, but they have like a rainbow effect under like the Lunarian ship, which makes it feel so like otherworldly, which is very cool. Um, like you see it here of just the different colors under the ship. Uh, yeah, cool composition, cool art. Whoa, yeah. Here's more shots of the island, is what it says. It's interesting in this one because it's like a thing where we don't see the sun in the manga. I'm trying to not put any manga spoilers in this video. But I will say that in this shot in the manga, it's just a bright light on the horizon, where this is more like Foss directly walking to the sun, which is great. It looks beautiful. Found that as a difference because we rarely see the sun just drawn out in the series. So in the manga, it's just a burst of light, which kind of comes off here. But I was just like, oh wow, this is like the only shot of the sun in the anime. Um, yeah. And then here's the like weird forest. I believe that's Morgan Goshen. Looks like them. The weird forest. The forest of very thin trees. That's on the island, and these skies are just so beautiful. Like the clouds. Like I can't. I wish I could draw backgrounds this well. It's so good. Backgrounds are probably my least skillful thing that I'm good at drawing. So it's great to see this book and just seeing like how much effort they just put into the backgrounds of the show. Like not even the characters. No, there's the school, there's the flowers and all that. Here's Congo. Again, like the characters are really simplistic, and the emphasis is on the backgrounds for this concept art because that's what they're focusing on. And like, even though Congo is very simplistic, it fits really well with the scene that they're portraying here. And this is very like close to the manga. Man, should I just grab the manga? I have it here, don't I? Uh, where is my manga one? Oh wait, no, I don't have it. I have someone borrowing it. Never mind. Haha. Anyway, so here is the shot of Congo, but like this is really elevated with the color. Like it's also like a good composition. This is almost exactly the same composition as in the manga, but the colors and the mood of the colors really affects how it looks. Um, this is gonna be a longer video than I thought. I say that about like every single video I do. Um, here's Daya in the field. You see Ventricosis in their like snail form there, and again, like the colors, like the main thing I'm seeing is like the colors are fantastic. Considering that the manga is black and white for there's some colored pages, but the manga is mostly black and white. The coloring of the uh, parts of the show are fantastic in these art books. And this is going over the manga art books, but I will make videos on all the Hosoki no Kuni art books. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe. And if you love Hosoki no Kuni content like I do, then I'll be making way more Hosoki no Kuni videos if that interests you. If not, that's okay. Although I don't know how you've made it to 20 minutes into this video and have no interest in Hosoki no Kuni, but yeah. So here's I almost forgot their name. Bort. Here's Bort. Just punting their sword into the ocean. Uh, I know this is a concept art. This is actually probably from when Bort actually first shows up, because they like after they defeat the Lunarian ship, they like jump down and are near the water. So that's probably what this concept art was for. Even though that's very in the background in the anime, but they probably were like, okay, what's the feel? What happens when they land and all that stuff. So just all the thought that they had to go into to make the anime is great. Here's more shots of the beautiful island and just them trying to make it look as a real place as possible, because that's what they were going for. Here is Foss underwater, not causing mayhem. And I just love the lighting that comes from the top of the water and how there's sort of like a spotlight in Foss. It's great. And that the rest of the background is a lot more dark, which really emphasizes Foss and following or having ventricosis and taking them places, yeah. Again, most of this video is going to be cool art does cool things. Here's Foss. This is probably their journey, like that was the beginning. Foss is now deeper in following ventricosis, and this is when Foss is probably close to losing their legs, looking at ventricosis, and you see how much the lighting changes as they get further away from the island, and it's very pretty. I love the like more pastel colors on this one. Here's the like Lunarian ship with Ventricosis's brother on it. Very cool, and the shell design looks very cool. Here's them when the shell is in the water and the Lunarians are gone. Here's probably just what they were thinking of what the top of the Lunarian ship is going to look like, and it's just a whole bunch of black. But it's interesting that they drew this to know what they were going for. And then there's random clouds. Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing any pages. This is a beautiful shot. No more words needed. But this is also just a very impactful shot in like the anime, and like in a very impactful scene. And you can see here like Cinnabar looking back at Foss, and Foss is just face planted into the water. Anyway, uh, and it's just like a very beautiful scene in how they were trying to think of how to get the colors. In the interview, it says that they put Foss's hair color in the sea and Cinnabar's hair color in the uh, like sunset and the land to really get them integrated into the background, which is very interesting. Like I said, I'm gonna read the interview at the end, but it's very cool like what they've done to really make these shots beautiful, and especially the composition and their emphasis is really on color because I really should wear gloves when handling this book, but I do not have gloves. But the composition is really on color because the Ichikawa did all the composition in the manga. And so not all they're really doing, but what they're doing is putting in detail to Ichikawa's works. And you can see this just with like the shot of the land. They have to paint the texture of it. I believe there is like there's texture in the manga, but they have to do the coloring, where's the lighting come from, and it's very like meticulous work, and it's beautiful. I love this shot so much. This is probably one of my favorite shots in the anime, just with the very blue moons and the red that of the inside of the cave. And like the moons are kind of like in the color of Foss, like the main character, which I kind of like. I don't know if that was intentional or they just did it for the cool shot, but the contrasting between the teal and the red, like really makes it cool composition wise. And then we just have Cinnabar looking at the moon, and we have the clipboard on the side. Here is shots. I believe this is where Cinnabar like walks around. There's Cinnabar there, just walking on the beach, and these are just very like mood shots and very different moods and very different lighting settings that they're experimented with to really understand the mood and what they were going for. Just very beautiful shots. Here is the lovely happy Cinnabar as they walk on their night patrol duties. And I love that they did the reflection in the water. And again, the characters are very simplistic, but what they're going for is mood and lighting and color for when they create the setting. And so it's just very good of like, despite how simplistic this looks, of how well everything is blended together. And that's for them to use as reference for when they make the actual shot. Here are the trees. We have Foss standing in the trees for the very thin trees of the forest that's on the island. Uh, I kind of like how they use Foss as reference for a lot of things, because Foss is just great, good character. But I love how this one has like mist, more misty, and this is just a clear thing of the trees. They might have done this first and then put the mist on top of it. That's probably what they did, and it's interesting that they're experimenting with different moods like that. Here's yellow, beautiful yellow, and they're looking out in the probably more further parts of the forest that are closer to the edges for Foss, because Foss is doing things, losing legs, the usual daily occurrences. And so yes, this is just a fabulous shot, especially with the rain and just the emphasis on the background, but also in yellow. Here's the amethyst. I like how this is basically the same shot, but it's kind of like either different seasons or the colors really change the environment that they're in. Like it's still both the amethyst, like pointing to where the sunspot would be. They also changed the clouds too. The clouds are different in here, so it's kind of like at different times of day, and you can see that they did a lot of experimenting on how to get the perfect shot for each of the scenes. And Foss is in the background. Here's more with the amethysts, and the clouds are really interesting in the background of this one. Just how there's kind of like it's kind of like stripes, and it looks really interesting and cool. And we have Foss looking out at the clouds, and the amethyst looking out at Foss, and then them collecting berries. Very very nice. As most of the artwork is in this. This is probably one of my favorite compositions in the art book. Again, wow, cool art is going to be most of my reactions to this video. But I just love the symmetricality of the amethyst, the like leaves blowing in the wind, and then the Lunarian shot just like farther up. It's just so pretty, and the like the detail of like the edges, and it's just like such a pretty contrast, especially with the colors of the sky in the background. It's just gorgeous, is what I'm saying. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. I think this is one of my favorites in the whole book. And then here is, probably the like part that Foss is probably sitting on, and the lead up to that scene. Uh, let's see, next page. Here's another shot, except again the colors are different. So let's see, this is them experimenting with what they want to do. This is also they're experimenting with what time of day, because it's not really explicitly said in the manga sometimes. And so here's more like midday, and then the amethyst with their very symmetricality, and then the Lunarian ship, and the leaves are still flowing. I love the addition of the leaves blowing in the wind. It's very cool. Um, in the manga, they have a butterfly that like flies on Foss's nose and then away when the Lunarian ship comes, and so the leaves like really add to that. Here we Foss coming with Congo, and yeah, this shot of Foss and Congo is really interesting because Congo is more like a stoic figure, and Foss is like, I don't know, Foss is like, tired. I love like all the personality they can show, even with no facial expressions, like with the characters and stuff like that. This is also a brilliant shot, as all this concept art is. Um, I like how it's framed on the page too, like just how everything is kind of like off of it, like not censored, so that you have this full power of just this page on this side. Um, and you can see the like shot. They kind of did a like mist in the anime, and this is just beautiful with just the sharp lines of like where the like effect ends, and it's the Lunarian ship exploding, and it looks so good here with like the composition and stuff. Here's winter stuff with Antark, and we have the winter thing. I loved how like Boss makes this quickly line and Antark's is just straight. It's just a small thing in like that they do in the story where the it shows their personality or it shows Foss's like Foss is tired and all that stuff. And it's just a visual way of showing some differences that like creates a little funny like visual gag. It's great. Here's the ice flows. The ice flows are uh yeah, the ice flows look cool again most of the video, but the like I can't draw ice. This is just very cool. I'm bad at explaining things, but the cool shot, the like dark background, like how there's kind of like a gradient with Foss standing there for scale of just how big it is. We love using Foss for scale. Um, this is also a brilliant shot. Like again, the darkness and then the light is really where they want to put emphasis, where it's Antark's trying to grab their hand. And this is just such a cool like perspective shot of Antark trying to get their hand. This is such a beautiful shot of just when the sun starts to come out. And of course, like it gets brighter, like sort of like a happy moment with like Foss looking for their arms or something. But then what's I like the show makes the sun so eerie because when the sun comes out, and it's cool how they're not even showing the sun because the sun doesn't show up in the manga, but oh not yet, but but the sun actually is something bad in the context of the winter because they talk about how the Lunarians only come out during sunny days. And so it gets brighter all of a sudden in the anime, and then they're all like, oh no. And then they look behind them and there's a Lunarian ship. It's just very good, and this shot like perfectly explains like the mood of even though it's a bright and sunny day, there's like a hint of terror, you know. Um, again, spoilers if you haven't watched the anime, go watch it. But here is Foss inside the like gold cube, and I love how they planned out like how they were going to show like Antark falling to pieces with that moment. And this is kind of like a colored in manga panel, and I love how they decided to go with a pink background. It really makes it a lot more horrifying. This is okay. The amethyst one is good. I might put this one over the amethyst one. This is so pretty. I think I might use this for the thumbnail. I think this is okay. I know I said the amethyst one was my favorite. I think this one's my favorite in the entire book. It's so pretty. Is that? I believe that's Antark. That's not. Yeah, that's Antark in the middle. We have Antark in the middle, and I just love the reflection of the sunset on the water. That really contrasts with the like cool ice, and just with Antark's pose in the middle, just giving a sense of like confidence. Yeah, confidence is the word. It's so pretty, man. Like it's so pretty. It's so good. Uh, yeah. And then we have Foss. They also talk about this uh in the interview. Again, we'll get to the interview. But what was his name? Nishikawa. Nishikawa said that the first thing they put down was the yellow of the sun, like the sunset, and that's because they wanted to make sure they got the mood right. So the yellow isn't too bright because they uh, want it to be a sad moment. And the yellow, like the yellow is a pale yellow because they want to emphasize the sadness and all that. And so it's very interesting how they chose that, like a desaturated yellow, to communicate that. And it has like the same thing of the sky being reflected in the water, and then Foss just standing there, kind of like emotionless and lonely and sad. And it's just very good. Here we have Foss smothering that Lunarian for information. This is such a lovely composition of just the circular pattern of Foss's gold, like encasing them. and like them sort of falling, and then but you can still peek in and see what's happening. Just very good composition. And then we have Congo under like the red moon, which I don't know if this is a shot in the anime, but this is a very cool shot, and they did the moon like beautifully. Yeah. Next page. So here we have Lunarian ship on tree. It looks like that might be Foss, like on a tree as the Lunarian ship approaches. This is also such a pretty shot. I'm not sure if this is in the anime. That actually might be the sun. I don't know. Yeah. We have Congo catching Foss after they probably defeat the Lunarian ship. This is probably during winter or the end of winter, and that scene. And again, the compositions are so beautiful, especially how the sun. I believe it's the sun is like framing the characters and the lighting in the shot. Here we have the sun again. Everyone's favorite character in the series, the sun. And then Foss looking out at the sun, and how the sun is just always peeking over the clouds and really adding to the lighting of this series. Here is a winter shot of the trees, the very thin trees. Yep. And now this is this is a shot. It says here. I believe that they're saying these are shots from every single episode of the anime. So this is episode 1, obviously the first shot. I guess this is when Congo goes to confront the Lunarian ship in episode 2. I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a couple months since I watched the anime, so I don't remember. But this is episode 2, episode 3, when they go to save Foss from the shell. Am I getting this right? Okay, well this is episode 4. I guess when they knock the shell in the water or something. Episode 4 with Ventricosis and Dia. Episode 5 where Cinnabar finds Foss at the end. Episode 6 where Diamond finds Foss with their new legs. Episode 7 where they start hibernation and there's Morgan Goshen. Episode 6. No, this is 8. I can't count. After 7 is 8. Episode 8 where Antark is introduced. Episode 9 where Foss is depressed. That's every episode. But episode 10 where Dia fights the Lunarian dog. Episode 11 Foss trauma. Episode 12 Foss with more trauma standing on a hill. Yes, that is the series. Now we go to the interview. We finally made it. It's been 37 minutes. Finally at the interview. Okay. Let me grab my wonky translations of this and I will try to interpret it as best I can. Yes. And this is Yoichi Nishikawa. Yes. Yeah, so this is like him. I believe this is just biographical information on Nishikawa. I didn't translate that. I think this is also like places he's worked. Yeah, and then orange Houseki no Kuni at the end. If you want to translate that, go ahead. But yeah, I believe this is more like biographical information, like what he did before working at Orange, like stuff like that. Yeah, okay, I'm trying to show that. Alright, so now I'm going to read a translation of this page to my best abilities. I'm trying. Okay. So they're talking about the different compositions in the book for the concept art. I am going to read it. So, and this is in the perspective of Nishikawa, obviously. It's my favorite original work, talking about Houseki no Kuni, and I felt familiar with it. When I first heard about this project, I hadn't read the original work yet, but when I saw the cover of the first volume, I immediately thought how beautiful it was. I opened the page, and the silhouette of the characters was also the silhouette of the characters was also the type I really liked. At the point, the image at the point at that point the image was quite clear. However, the story developed in the comic is quite simple. I think he's talking about like the backgrounds and the artwork is very simplistic. The work is not detailed, and the world in which it takes place is set in a setting where there are extremely few things. So how on earth could an art form be established? That anxiety remained. Well, on the contrary, I thought it would be easier to express my individuality. So he's saying that there wasn't a lot to work with in terms of the source material for the backgrounds in the world. So he leaned into his creativity for the artworks. I'm just over explaining things. Moving on to the details, the original author, Haruka Ichikawa, lives in Hokkaido. Looking at the things depicted, it seems that they are references to things from Hokkaido. This is worth it to me for. I think he's saying this is similar to another series named Where Marine When Marine was there, which I participated in as an art staff member. I used Hokkaido, so he used in a previous work he worked on. He used Hokkaido references as well. Um, I was able to pull out materials from that time and then go to the logs to create the details, adding colors while reading the original work. As for the original story, the first volume of the collection is good, and as you read it, you gradually get to the story of uh, like sort of indescribable. I think he's just like saying like the story's good. You get to the story, and along with the short stories, Ichikawa drew it in the same direction. So I was able to grasp the world in my own way. When I'm reading as a reader, I enjoy watching the characters and the story move. But when it comes to reading for work, I color each panel in my head. I thought that the mood was dark here, so the whole thing had a bluish tinge, or that the atmosphere was amber, so it had a quality feel to it. This is a habit I always do, and I use black and white contrast. Even when I read the text, I color it myself. Director Kyogoku selected France's Pedonte Flaxid as a material. This work is unique in its use of color and uses complementary colors effectively to create the screen. I proceeded with this in mind as well. Also, I wanted to make sure that I didn't disappoint the expectations of the fans of the original work. I gathered my thoughts. The first thing I drew was the scene where Diamond and the Lunarians confront each other. So that's this one down here. This was seen earlier. Yeah. So that's the first thing he drew for the concept arts. How can I create the feeling of sparkling gems that the original work has? That was a big challenge. But since my paints are naturally highly saturated and have strong colors, I thought it would be a good idea to bring out their unique characteristics. And I guess starting with Diamond's hair, because I believe that was a really struggle for the team, was probably like the best way to do that, or just starting with the most difficult thing first and figuring it out, you know? All right, next page. The first thing I drew, like talk about that. I was trying not to worry about it too much. Uh, was the scene in which Diamond was fighting the Lunarians, like the Yoko. I use Yoko. Oh, I think he's saying that he took inspiration from Hokkaido to create the background. Here I had to create a picture that gave a scene of the spaciousness of the space. So I made use of what I learned from Yohei Taneda, the art director of When Marine was there. Um, Hokkaido, Russia, and the UK have the same number of stars, or I think similar skies is what he's saying. Similar climates, and the summer is quite dry. The only way to convey the atmosphere of the wide expanse of land in that area is to express the visual state in the 11 paintings. First, I carefully painted the part of the sky that I wanted to show, and then painted the snow in the background so that it overlapped with the lower layers to create depth. This time I am using the method of showing things, is how it translated it, but it's probably a known method. The color of the sky is mixed with pink to cool it down a bit, and then the complementary colors of the sea and the green of the ground are added to it. I also added some writing into the shadows, or he also drew some writing to the shadows of the grass to give it a detailed splash of color, so that the color doesn't look uh, too lonely. Yeah, the word for writing and drawing is the same in Japanese, So it might translate that. So it's probably said I drew the shadows of the grass. Yeah, that makes sense. So if I drew too cluttered, it would deviate from the original image. So I was careful not to do that. They carefully struck a balance between making it an interesting background for an anime and still maintaining the atmosphere of the original work. This is a work in which color plays an important role. Um, After that, I drew 8 concept images. At first, there were some parts that looked a little too realistic, so I adjusted that in the scene where Foss stands on the winter sea. I made the scene look gray, but it was a bit graphic, so that's talking about this one. We saw this one. This was also after like one of the really good shots. Yeah, so it's talking about that one now. And then this. Okay, another thing is I don't know whether it's reading uh all the way this one and then this one, or these two and then this one. I'm assuming it's reading this way, so I'm reading it down this way and down that way. But I believe here talks about this one, so I could be wrong in what I'm reading. But yeah. So okay, I'm reading this side now. So I made the reflected part green and added to it. So this is talking about I don't know the image of the screen added it to the image of the screen. I searched for an image of Eddie by Cal and used it as reference. In the scene where Cinnabar is standing on the key, the rock surface is used to make it look like gems are listening here and there. Since I made the top one red, I wanted to make the night sky a little greener, so I used complementary colors here as well. I think he might actually be talking about the shot that I mentioned before with Cinnabar and the moons. He's saying he used the contrasting colors of the very blue moons and the red inside of the cave. Uh, I believe that's what he's saying. I'm trying to interpret it. Um, let's see. Since I made the top one red, I wanted to make the night sky a little greener, so I use complementary colors here as well. I also incorporate the image color of each character into the background. I mentioned that before, such as for Cinnabar and red, such as red for Cinnabar and like teal, green, bluish for Foss. In contrast, in the scene with the Lunarians, I purposely did the Lunarians in Congo, I believe is what they're saying. I purposely did not use color, uh, giving it a sharp look. Director Kyogoku told me that he wanted to incorporate the same abnormal colors from time to time. So I ended up using the same colors as the primary colors and black on the cover of the comic volume. Land of the Lustrous is a work in which colors play an important role. Actually, when I worked at Ghibli, I was taught to produce rich colors. It's not just making shadows disappear. Shadows also have tones of color, so you have to pick on them neatly. This work is where I put all things I learned into play. With this in mind, I paid careful attention to the colors. Um, I had a comment and then I forgot. Oh, so he's saying that in order to make the Lunarians and Congo feel different, he while all the like the background has so much color, the characters have so much color, he purposely made the Lunarians and Congo have less color to create a sense of like that they're different, which is very interesting. Depending, or at least that's what I'm interpreting from it. My interpretation. Depending on the color you place first, all other colors on the screen are determined. So he's going to talk about this one now, I believe. This one right here. Um, Regarding colors, Yoji Takashige, the art director at Ghibli, taught me exactly how to create pictures. According to Takashige, once you place one color, all other colors are determined. So all that's left to do is to apply it. I believe the next section is still talking about this image as well. I'm gonna read this part now. Yeah. So it's going to talk about how they placed the yellow of the sun first and built all the colors from just that yellow. Uh, Sorry, I lost it. Okay, back. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm reading this side. So if you understand the director's intentions from the storyboard and draw out the structure of the object and the laws of nature, the colors that fit each part will naturally be determined. That's why I don't change only the colors I draw. That's why I don't change only the colors I drew at the beginning. if I round them up, I can't decide on anything else. So I create the screen, and if it needs to be different, I change it and adjust the others accordingly. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but as I gained experience over the years, I came to understand it. That's why the color you draw first is important, but sometimes it's decided quickly and sometimes it's not. If you can't decide, you'll have no choice but to redraw it over and over again. For example, there is a scene where Foss is standing on a plane while melting snow. Here, I want to use the color that should be used first to represent tomorrow. At the end of winter, a warm color would make it look like a sunset, so I'll use a cool yellow. Furthermore, in this scene, Antark is taken away and Foss is suffering. I like how that's translated. So even though it's yellow, I don't want to look too bright. So I decided to do on a clear yellow color that wasn't cold and shiny, and decided on other colors from there. Of course, I used photographic materials as reference, but when it comes to colors, I can't assemble anything without doing detailed calculations myself. Color is of course essential in creating the highlight of the screen. In this show, there is only one small island left in the world, so it is not possible to create undulations in the land. It's easy to create animation when it has undulations, and works by Hayao Miyazaki and Mamoru Hosoda often use slopes to create depth. However, in the stage of Land of the Lustrous, cannot help but be level. In order to help the impression of the screen uh, screen and helps in order to keep the impression of the screen flat, we had to consider the number of colors and their balance. In the scene we just saw earlier with where Foss is standing on on a plane of melting snow, the snow and the exposed surface of the ground are intrin- intricately incorporated to create a skewed image. If you look closely at the actual wetlands, they are quite intricate. Snow is normally white with some blue mixed in for the shadows, but I've carefully added red and green to the shadow colors. This keeps the image from looking lonely. Art and so now we're on to this part. So that was about this one, obviously. And it's true, these are so detailed. Like you can see the individual brushstrokes when you really look close on them. So this is going to talk about the architecture of the film, and that's this side. Okay. Architecture creates blueprints. Let the chair reflect the personality of the person who uses it. There's no doubt that I paid a lot of attention to the colors, it but in quotient, sometimes sometimes shape is also important. I'm glad that we found, or just as important, I'm glad that we found the natural objects were fresh from Hokkaido, but the building is completely from Kansai International Airport, or I think a university, and that might be, I don't know. Um, so we couldn't go to the location scouting for the actual building. Oh no, this is talking about. However, Ichikawa said that the Brazilian architecture Oscar Niemeyer was a good candidate, so I looked at the materials and put together the architecture on paper. I also learned that the inside of the building where Foss and his friends, and their friends, were located resembled the library at Tama Art University, so I went to see it and use it as a reference. I drew the blueprints. I just love. Okay, here I'm going to show this one. I just love how focus camera focus. You can do it, I promise. I just love how they use Foss as a height reference for everything. Just putting Foss in the room, it's kind of yeah, it's great. I also wonder why they chose specifically that Foss, but it's great. It's great. All right. I drew the blueprints of the buildings, calculated the exact sizes of the things that will be placed there. So much detail and effort was put into it, man. And then create pictures based on those numbers. This is also something that Yohei Taneda pointed out. Mr. Taneda is in charge of the aesthetics of live action photography, so if there is even a slight difference in the image, he can immediately tell. People point out things you can't sit on people point out things like you can't sit on a chair like this, or a table that doesn't exist. So after all, we have to take measurements and draw the same blueprints as we would use to actually make things. If you don't do that, the reality is actually much different. Um, Tanida told me to be careful about furniture, especially chairs, because they reveal the personality of a person sitting on them. And I was careful about that this time as well. Foss at the beginning of the story, and that's the end of this page. Yep. So now on to this, and this is I believe reference images. Let me finish reading this part. So Foss at the beginning of the story sit on a chair they used that didn't have any edges because uh, it felt loose. Uh, I'm trying to figure out which character this is supposed to be in Japanese. Um, let's see, like a disciplined person in a straight line. I think that's Cinnabar had a triangular opponent because I think this is talking about like Cinnabar sitting in the cave. Uh, uh, okay, this is hard to understand. So saying the chair that Foss sits on, the image where I'm saying that it's loose because it doesn't have many edges. I'm guessing saying like the sides of the chair. There's not as much sides of the chair. It's talking about another character has a triangular opponent because it was loose. Or it might not be another character just talking about the chair. And it's saying Congo sits on a stool, the platform that he sits on when he goes to meditate. Uh, and he sits on it like a disciplined person. Had his hands tied in a straight line. It's similar to this in the comics, so he kept that in mind and made the characters' personalities more distinct. And since the world of Foss and their friends is lacking in detail, I drew them in a form that was as thin as possible. Um, the more you put effort into it, the more the results will appear on screen. I once heard that drawing requires 90% of knowledge and 10% of skill. Regardless of whether skill is sufficient or not, it is true that knowledge is important. And if you don't know anything, you won't be able to draw. I started working in art at Ghibli, and when I joined the studio, I was told the first thing I draw was a shot. I believe that it's shot. Let me see what the original Japanese says. Yeah, when I say Ghibli, let me take it. Okay, I can't tell. So the first thing I drew was a shop or shot. No matter how much I drew, I couldn't do it well. I don't know. I don't know how the building is formed. In that case, it's eroded type, so it's a sheer rock that has collapsed. At the bottom is filled with fine rocks that have fallen and fallen. The further you go, the larger the lump becomes, and the top of the shop should become a little smaller. I told you to keep it in mind how it came to be. I see that if you don't know these things, you won't be able to draw well. There's also a picture in Land of the Lustrous where Cinnabar makes sense. This is also in line with the establishment of the shop. I'm trying to figure out what they're saying about that. Where Cinnabar okay, I'm saying I think he says there's a thought with Cinnabar that is similar to what he learned with that task he had to do at Ghibli. It is depicted in the kind of accumulation of details. Oh, so he's trying to interpret this. Um, the kind of accumulation of details is important when it comes to the ocean. So I believe that he's talking about when he was working at Ghibli. Again, I have the Japanese on screen. If anyone is more, I've been studying Japanese for so long, but I haven't been kept up with it, so I'm not as good as I need to be. But if any of you in the comments know more about this Japanese or can interpret it better, let us know. But I believe what he's saying is when he worked at Ghibli, he had a task to draw a shop, is what the translation says. And he had to make it more and more detailed. So he was saying that it's kind of like, I guess, a stone rolling on each other, or like thinking of how the world affects the setting to make it that detailed. And so he's saying that there's a shot with Cinnabar by the ocean that he said he used the same technique of making it more and more detailed. I think is my interpretation from what I'm getting out of the uh, wonk translation I have. Okay, so now I'm reading this part. Because it absorbs the color of the sky, so the color becomes one step deeper than the sky at that moment. If you don't understand that, things will look unnatural when you're there. The people will think that you don't understand. In order to accumulate such experiences, experience is most important than anything else. The quickest way to get a feel for the atmosphere and surroundings that you can't. Whoops. Sorry. The audio might have gone wonk there. Um, sorry, I'm trying to find my place where it was. Becomes one step deeper than the sky at that moment. If you don't understand that, things you will look unnatural when you're there, and people will think you don't understand. In order to accumulate experiences, experience is more important than anything else. The quickest way to get a feel for the atmosphere and surroundings that you can't just get just by looking at the photos is to go to the Roku, or to go to the real place, travels to the real place. This is a picture of the building where Foss and their friends live, and the plant that grows in the pond is based on the plant called sagebrush. It grows in many wetlands in Hokkaido, and leaves have a special shape. The leaves are naturally arranged in a mortar shape, and the fluff and the fluff and look and they fluff and look beautiful when waving in the wind. It is hard to understand the feeling unless you actually see it. This this expression was only possible because I went on location in Hokkaido. The illustrations in the anime are fictitious plants, but without the original, it ends up looking like a lie. In live action movies, people go out of their way to lie by creating signboards and train cars so that people don't find out, but the people in the anime actually lie. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? I don't know if the people watching will notice those details, but since I'm a professional, I don't want to compromise, so I'll do what I can. I also believe that the more you do, the more you will see on screen. However, no one watches a work by focusing solely on the background. I think the correct background art is one that has a character and exists casually. So he's casually and naturally behind it. So he's saying good background art doesn't detract from the character and exists casually and naturally in the background. However, in order to make it look natural, you need to understand things properly before drawing. In order to make it not unnatural, I force it to reveal knowledge and make it more persuasive. If you don't go to that extent, you won't be able to exist casually, or the background won't be able to exist casually. All right, that is done with the wonk translation of that interview. I think, like, I don't think the translation, or my translation, is completely accurate. So take it with a grain of salt, especially some things that were a little harder to understand. But I think there's some great like knowledge of just artistry that is in this interview, and so I hope I communicated some of those ideas. Here is reference shots, I believe, that was like on location scouting is what it says. Um, so here's like the water and the rocks probably, and the leaves that he took inspiration from, and the forests of the trees, which again, like, I'm not that good at backgrounds, so seeing all the work he put in to make sure that these backgrounds were as realistic, but still fit with the characters as much as possible is great. And then here's a bunch of more reference art of the school and I believe just the school of the school, the outside, and the interior. Let me like Whoops, let me prop this up so hopefully you can get a better view of this. So here we have the school art set, yeah. And then what it looks like from the outside. And here we have the inside of the school and what it looks like there. There's the shot of Foss for high comparison for everything. Oh, who's that with Foss? Maybe I think that's Foss and Daya in the like communal space. Yeah, and they have like some notes in Japanese on it too. So yeah, there's that. And then here's the last shot in the book, I believe. And it's Foss with their new golden, lovely arms standing in the field. Probably the same field that they started on, maybe. It's story's good. And the artwork is breathtaking. The anime artwork is breathtaking. The manga artwork is breathtaking. It's so good. I will cherish this art book because um, it's just so pretty, and you can really see the detail in it. So good. I believe this is just credits for some people who worked on Orange. Yeah, illustration was Nishikawa, so I believe most of this illustration in this artwork book was Yoichi Nishikawa. Publisher is Eiji Inamoto. Editor Yu Matsuoka. Book design Kyoko Kamuro. Text Hiroshi Yamauchi. I'm not as good as reading the Japanese names, but when it's in English letters, I actually have a harder time than when it's in like hiragana or something. Uh, anyway, but yeah, this is basically the credits for I believe this book or for the anime in general. There you go. I'm not sure if that can be read well on the camera, but I hope it can. And then here we have the sketch of the cover art again at the end. Yep, and it's beautiful. And then we have Daya again. I'm gonna put this back in the book, and I'm gonna put this back in the plastic that it came with because I don't want to. I want to keep this in good condition because it's a really nice book. And yeah, well, that was a longer video than I thought. Thank you so much for watching this video and everything like that. If you want to if you want to watch flip throughs of the rest of the Houseki no Kuni art books, feel free to subscribe and I'll have those posted soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.